Atchison, Kansas. It's a quiet town, a place where you'd expect life to be, well, simple. But on a street called North 2nd, there's a house that holds a dark secret. From the outside, it doesn't look like much, just a normal, unassuming home. But inside, something malevolent waits. This is the Sallie house. Its story is one of the most documented and terrifying hauntings in American history. People know its name. They whisper about the things that happened within its walls. The energy here is heavy, oppressive. It clings to you the moment you step onto the property, a silent warning of the darkness that resides within. We've investigated countless locations, faced down demons, and confronted angry spirits. But the Sallie house is different. The activity here is personal, intelligent. It seems to target people, to learn their fears and use them against them. It's not just a residual haunting where energy plays on a loop. This is something more, something conscious. The house has a reputation that precedes it. A chilling legacy built on fear, pain, and unexplained phenomena. For years, its story has been told by paranormal investigators, television crews, and the terrified family who once called this place home. The legend says a little girl named Sallie died here during a botched appendectomy right in the house. They say her spirit never left. But is it really a little girl causing all this chaos? Or is it something darker? Something pretending to be a child to lure people in? That's the question that haunts everyone who enters. The name Sallie sounds innocent, sweet even. But the events that have unfolded under this roof are anything but. The house on North 2nd Street is a gateway, a portal to something we don't fully understand. It's a place where the veil between our world and the next is dangerously thin. I've always been drawn to places with this kind of raw energy, places where the stories are so intense you can feel them in the air. The Sallie house is one of those locations. It's a landmark in the paranormal field for a reason. The evidence captured here is undeniable. The experience is life-changing. Before we even get into the full story, you have to understand the power this location holds. It's a place that tests your beliefs, your courage, and your sanity. This isn't just a ghost story. This is a case file on a house that actively and violently haunts the living. In 1993, a young couple moved in, Tony and Deborah Pickman. They were just starting their lives, you know. They had a new baby. They were filled with hope. They saw the house at 508 North 2nd Street as their perfect first home. It looked like the American dream, a cozy little house in a friendly neighborhood. They had no idea they were moving into a nightmare. The house was quiet at first. It was just a place to build a life, to raise their child. The walls were freshly painted, the rooms filled with the promise of a happy future. Nothing seemed out of place. The days were normal. Tony went to work. Deborah took care of their baby son. They were a typical young family. The house felt like a home. There were no strange noises, no cold spots, no feeling of being watched. It was just wood, plaster and glass, or so they thought. They unpacked their boxes, arranged their furniture, and settled into a routine. The nursery was set up, filled with toys and soft blankets. It was a picture of domestic peace, completely unaware of the storm that was gathering just beneath the surface of their new life. The house itself has a simple layout. A living room, a kitchen, bedrooms upstairs, and a dark, creepy basement below. It's the kind of place you've seen 100 times, but that's what makes it so terrifying. The horror didn't come from a Gothic castle or an abandoned asylum. It came from a small suburban home. It proves that darkness can exist anywhere, even in the most ordinary of places. The hallways seemed to get a little darker at night. The flickering lights were dismissed as faulty wiring. The creaks and groans were just the sounds of an old house settling, but soon the normal explanations started to wear thin. The family dog would bark and growl at empty corners. It would refuse to go into certain rooms, especially the nursery. The baby would cry inconsolably for no reason, staring at something over his parents' shoulders. Deborah started to feel an unsettling presence, a feeling of being watched when she was alone. It was a slow burn. The activity started small, subtly weaving its way into their daily lives. It was like the house was testing them, learning them, before it decided to show its true face. The American dream was beginning to fray at the edges. The haunting escalated quickly and it became intensely physical. The entity in the house seemed to focus its energy on one person, Tony. It started with small things. Objects would move when he was in the room. A toy would slide across the floor, a picture frame would fall off the wall. At first he tried to rationalize it. He thought his mind was playing tricks on him, but the activity grew more blatant, more aggressive. It was no longer possible to ignore. Something was in the house with them, and it did not want him there. The first major physical attack was brutal and unprovoked. Tony was in the kitchen when he suddenly felt a burning sensation on his back. It felt like a hot poker being dragged across his skin. When Deborah looked, she was horrified. 3 long, deep scratches were carved into his back, red and raw. They looked like they had been made by claws. There was nothing that could have caused them. No nails, no sharp objects. It was a direct, violent assault from an unseen force. This was the moment everything changed. This was no longer just a creepy feeling. This was an attack. After that, the physical attacks became a regular occurrence. Scratches would appear on Tony's chest, his stomach, his arms. They would manifest out of nowhere, often in front of witnesses. He would be sitting on the couch and suddenly he would cry out in pain. His shirt would be lifted to reveal fresh bleeding marks. Bruises would appear in the shape of fingerprints, as if an invisible hand had grabbed him with incredible force. The entity was tormenting him, marking him. It was a clear message. "You are not welcome here. Get out." The activity centered around the nursery and the upstairs hallway. This is where the energy felt the strongest. Lights would flicker violently whenever Tony walked past. Cold spots would drop the temperature in an instant. Shadowy figures would dart in the corner of his eye. He would hear his name whispered from empty rooms. The house was alive, and it had chosen him as its victim. The family was living in a constant state of fear, never knowing when the next attack would come. Their home had become a prison, and they were trapped with a violent, invisible tormentor. It wasn't just the physical attacks. The visual phenomena in the Sallie house were just as terrifying. The family began seeing things, not just blurs or flickers in their peripheral vision, but solid, dark shapes. Shadow figures became a common sight. They would stand in doorways, motionless, just watching. Tony reported seeing a full-bodied apparition of a woman in the hallway. Others saw the distinct shape of a little girl, believed to be Sallie, but were these separate spirits or one entity changing its form? These figures weren't transparent ghosts from the movies. They were dark, solid masses of energy that blocked out the light behind them. They moved with purpose. Sometimes they would glide slowly down the hall. Other times they would dart away the moment you turned to look directly at them. Imagine being in your home, the one place you're supposed to feel safe, and seeing a dark human shape standing at the end of the hall. You blink and it's gone. The psychological terror of that experience is immense. It makes you question your own sanity. Objects would also move on their own, often with violent force. Toys would fly out of the nursery and down the stairs. Kitchen utensils would be arranged in strange patterns on the floor. The family would come home to find furniture overturned, as if a terrible struggle had taken place. It was a constant, chaotic display of poltergeist activity. The entity was making its presence known. It was showing them its strength. It wanted them to know they had no control. It was a power play, a campaign of terror designed to break them down mentally and emotionally. One of the most chilling events involved the baby's nursery. The Pickmans had a collection of stuffed animals arranged on a shelf. They would often find them on the floor, arranged in a perfect circle. Sometimes a mobile above the crib would start spinning on its own, playing its music in the dead of night. It was as if the spirit was trying to interact with the child. This was deeply disturbing for Deborah and Tony. Was the spirit of the little girl, Sallie, trying to play? Or was something much more sinister, using the image of a child to get closer to their baby? The Pickman family was at their breaking point. They were terrified, exhausted, and honestly just desperate for answers. They knew they couldn't handle this alone. They needed help, so they reached out to paranormal investigators, hoping, that someone could explain what was happening in their home. This decision would turn their private nightmare into one of the most famous paranormal cases in the world. Investigators from various groups descended on the small Kansas house, bringing with them cameras, audio recorders, and a real desire to document the truth. The house, it seemed, was ready for them. When the investigators arrived, the activity didn't stop. In fact, it intensified. It was as if the entity enjoyed having an audience. The investigators were not just passive observers, they became targets themselves. They experienced the same phenomena as the family cold spots, disembodied voices, and that eerie feeling of being watched. Many of them also witnessed objects moving on their own. The house was putting on a show, providing the investigators with an incredible amount of evidence. This wasn't a subtle haunting. It was loud, aggressive, and, well, undeniable. One of the key pieces of equipment used was the video camera. In the 1990s, this meant bulky VHS camcorders. Investigators set them up throughout the house, letting the tapes run for hours, hoping to capture something, and they did. On the footage, you can see strange light anomalies or orbs flying through the rooms. You can hear unexplained noises and voices that weren't heard at the time. The cameras captured a world existing just beyond our own senses, a world that was interacting directly with the people in the house. The investigators also conducted EVP sessions, electronic voice phenomena. This is where you ask questions into an empty room while running an audio recorder. The theory is that spirits can use the electronic energy to form words that you can hear upon playback. In the Sallie house, the results were astonishing. Clear voices were captured. When asked, "Who is scratching Tony?" a voice was recorded saying, "It's Sallie." Other recordings captured growls, whispers, and chilling laughter. The house was communicating, and it was confirming the family's worst fears. The evidence gathered from the Sallie house is honestly some of the most compelling in the history of paranormal research. It's not just stories and feelings, it's documented proof. The most famous piece of evidence is the video of Tony getting scratched. During an investigation, cameras were rolling as Tony sat on the floor. He suddenly flinched in pain. When he lifted his shirt, fresh red welts were visible on his stomach, appearing in real time right before the camera's lens. This footage has been analysed by experts and, well, it remains one of the most shocking pieces of paranormal evidence ever captured. Photographs taken inside the house also revealed strange anomalies. In one famous picture, a dark, smudged face of what appears to be a little girl can be seen in the window of the nursery. In other photos, strange mists and unexplained light sources appear where there were none. These images were taken on 35mm film, long before the age of digital manipulation and Photoshop. They stand as a stark, visual record of the entities that resided within the house, frozen moments in time that capture the haunting in progress. Beyond the physical evidence, the personal experiences of the investigators were profound. Many seasoned researchers left the Sallie house shaken. They reported being pushed, touched, and taunted by the unseen forces. Some even claimed to see the full-bodied apparition of Sallie herself, a small girl with dark hair and a sad expression. The consistency of these reports from different people at different times lends incredible weight to the story. It wasn't just the family's imagination. Something was truly happening in that house, and it affected everyone who dared to cross its threshold. The house seemed to have an intelligence. It would respond directly to questions. It would manipulate objects to make a point. During one investigation, a group asked the spirit to show them a sign of its presence. Moments later, a heavy picture flew off the wall and crashed to the floor. This wasn't random energy, this was direct, intentional communication. The evidence gathered, the videos, the photos, the EVPs, the personal testimonies, all paints a picture of a powerful, intelligent, and often violent haunting that has rightfully earned its place in paranormal history. Living in the Sallie house was, in a way, a form of psychological warfare. The constant fear and stress took a massive toll on the Pickman family. Imagine never feeling safe in your own home. Imagine putting your baby to bed at night, absolutely terrified of what might be in the room with him. This was their reality. The haunting didn't just scratch their skin, it scarred their minds. The lack of sleep, the constant anxiety, and the feeling of being under siege wore them down day by day. Their emotional and mental health suffered greatly. Tony, as the main target of the physical attacks, was deeply affected. He lived in a state of hypervigilance, always waiting for the next burn, the next scratch. The experience isolated him. How do you explain to friends or co-workers that a ghost is physically assaulting you? People would think he was crazy. The attacks made him feel powerless and victimized in his own home. This led to tension and strain within the family. The entity wasn't just attacking Tony, it was attacking their marriage and their family unit by sowing seeds of fear and discord. Deborah was caught in a terrible position. She had to protect her child while watching her husband be tormented by an invisible force. She felt the oppressive atmosphere of the house constantly. The emotional burden of living with that kind of fear is, honestly, hard to comprehend. She was forced to be the strong one, the protector, while dealing with her own terror. The haunting robbed them of the joy of being new parents. Instead of celebrating milestones, they were documenting paranormal activity and trying to survive each day. Ultimately, the psychological and emotional trauma became too much to bear. The family couldn't live like that anymore. Their home, which was supposed to be a sanctuary, had become a house of horrors. The decision to leave was not made lightly, but it was necessary for their survival and sanity. They fled the house, leaving behind their belongings and the dream they once had. The haunting didn't end for them the day they moved out. The memories, the fear, and the trauma of what they endured in the Sallie house would stay with them forever. Even after the Pickman family left, the Sallie house was not quiet. Its reputation had grown, and it became a destination for paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters from all over the country. The house seemed to welcome the attention, but on its own terms. It continued to be an active and dangerous location. Many who entered the house to investigate found that the stories were true. The activity was real, and it was just as aggressive as it had been with the Pickman family. The house was fighting back against anyone who tried to uncover its secrets. Investigators who have spent the night in the house report a wide range of terrifying experiences. Equipment malfunctions are common. Batteries drain instantly. Cameras turn off for no reason. It's as if the entity is trying to prevent itself from being documented. People have been scratched just like Tony was. They've had objects thrown at them. They've heard disembodied voices yelling at them to get out. The upstairs nursery remains a major hotspot, with many reporting the overwhelming feeling of a child's presence, sometimes playful but often menacing. One of the most persistent theories is that the spirit of Sallie is not the only entity in the house. Some psychics and investigators believe that something much darker is at play. They suggest that a demonic, non-human entity is using the image of a little girl as a mask. A child's spirit is less threatening, something that might draw people in. This darker force is believed to be the source of the violent physical attacks, the growls and the intense negative energy that permeates the home. It feeds on the fear of those who enter. The house continues to be a battleground between the living and the dead. Every investigation is a confrontation. The spirits, or whatever they are, do not lie dormant. They interact, they provoke, they attack. The Sallie house is not a passive haunting. It is an active, ongoing phenomenon that challenges our understanding of the paranormal. It fights back against anyone who tries to impose their will, making it one of the most unpredictable and dangerous locations a paranormal investigator can enter. It demands respect, and it punishes those who don't give it. The story of the Sallie house has left a permanent mark on the world of the paranormal. It's more than just a local legend. It's a case study in extreme haunting. The sheer volume of evidence, combined with the consistent testimony from the family and dozens of investigators, makes it impossible to dismiss. The scratches, the moving objects, the shadow figures, it all points to something real and powerful residing at 508 North 2nd Street. The house stands today as a monument to fear, a place where the veil between worlds was torn open. What is the ultimate truth of the Sallie house? Is it the lonely spirit of a little girl who died tragically? Is it a powerful demonic entity masquerading as a child? Or is it something else entirely, something our science and understanding cannot yet explain? The mystery is part of what makes the story so enduring. We have the evidence, we have the experiences, but we don't have the final answer. The house holds its secrets close, revealing just enough to terrify us, but never enough to give us the full picture. The legacy of the Sallie house is not just in the evidence it has provided, but in the human story at its core. It's the story of the Pickman family whose lives were turned upside down by an inexplicable terror. Their experience serves as a chilling reminder that there are forces in this world that we do not understand, forces that can invade our homes and our lives. Their story validates the experiences of so many others who have been afraid of the dark, who have heard a noise in an empty house and felt that primal fear of the unknown. Today, The Sallie house is still there. It remains one of the most famous and feared haunted locations in the United States. People still visit, hoping to catch a glimpse of the paranormal, to experience the chill, to maybe even communicate with Sallie. But for those who know its true history, it is more than just a thrill-seeker's destination. It is a place of genuine darkness and unexplained power. The legacy of the Sallie house is one of lasting fear, unanswered questions, and the chilling certainty that we are not alone.